By the summer of 1944, American tank crews understood a brutal truth. Their lives were measured not in years, but in the distance between battles. The M4 Sherman, the backbone of the Allied advance, was fast, common, and terrifyingly fragile. Its thin armor and gasoline engine earned it a nickname whispered with gallows humor, the Ronson, because it lit up the first time it was hit. Across the fields of France waited the Tiger. Thick armor, massive gun, a machine designed to kill from beyond sight. The math was simple. 5 Shermans to destroy 1 Tiger, and most of those crews would never climb out alive. Yet somewhere on those hedgerow roads, a single Sherman ignored the equation. It didn't hide. It didn't wait for support. It charged straight at the steel predator that should have erased it. This is the story of men who charged death anyway and survived. Long before he climbed into a steel turret, the man inside the hatch was already at war with limits. He grew up learning that hesitation invited defeat, and that violence, when unavoidable, had to be overwhelming. Before the army, he was a fighter in the most literal sense, trained to close distance, absorb punishment, and keep moving forward when others backed away. Discipline bored him. Rules felt optional. What mattered was momentum and control. When the uniform came, commanders saw a problem child, not a tactician. He refused the safety of rank and paperwork, choosing instead the exposed seat where decisions were measured in seconds. That choice would later define everything that followed, once history demanded proof of his instincts. Inside the Sherman, survival felt temporary. The tank was tall, thin, and packed with compromises. Ammunition was stacked beside the crew, gasoline fumes hung in the air, and every bolt rattled under fire. When a shell penetrated the armor, flames spread faster than men could react. Crews learned to recognize the sound of incoming rounds, to judge whether the next second belonged to them or the fire. The interior was cramped and deafening. Engines screamed, radios crackled, and sweat mixed with oil and cordite. Visibility was narrow, forcing commanders to expose themselves just to see. The Sherman could move fast, but speed only meant arriving first at danger. Every mission began with the same quiet understanding. This machine was not built to protect them, only to move them forward again. To the men inside American tanks, the Tiger was not just another vehicle. It was a presence. Its armor was thick enough to shrug off frontal hits, its gun powerful enough to kill from distances where the Sherman could barely reply. Crews spoke about it in lowered voices, as if naming it invited disaster. A Tiger did not rush. It waited, concealed, patient, letting fear do half the work. When it fired, the battlefield seemed to freeze. One flash, one thunderous crack, and an American tank became burning wreckage. Many crews never saw what killed them. They only knew the legend. If a Tiger was out there, you were already being hunted. And survival depended on luck, timing, and distance. Facing the Tiger at range was suicide, so the commander chose madness instead. He looked at the Sherman's weaknesses and saw opportunity. The tank was thin, but it was fast. Its turret traversed quicker than German guns. If distance favored the enemy, then distance had to be erased. His order was simple and terrifying. Close in, never stop, and strike before the Tiger could think. This tactic shattered doctrine. Rather than creeping forward, the Sherman burst through hedgerows, fired on the move, and charged straight into danger. Speed became armor. Aggression became camouflage. German crews trained for cautious opponents suddenly faced chaos. Their decision cycle broke. They hesitated, recalculated, and died. What should have been reckless suicide became controlled violence, turning a fragile machine into a psychological weapon that forced even superior steel to blink first. In those moments, fear shifted sides, and momentum decided who lived and burned there. 5 men turned the theory into reality. Each role inside the tank mattered, but what made them lethal was trust. The driver felt commands before they were spoken, pushing the engine to its limit without hesitation. The gunner searched constantly, eyes trained to spot unnatural shapes in fields and shadows. The loader moved on instinct, feeding shells with bruised hands and unbroken rhythm. The bow gunner kept enemy infantry at bay, sealing the tank's bubble of motion. Together they became a single organism, reacting faster than fear. They refused promotions, refused separation, and learned each other's breathing. In battle, that unity erased doubt, and in a war decided by seconds, doubt was death. For them, survival was collective, never individual. Confidence arrived quietly, then all at once. The first time the Sherman charged through a hedgerow, German defenders froze. They were prepared for cautious Americans, not a tank bursting from the earth, firing on the move. Machine gun nests vanished under high explosive shells. Anti-tank crews broke and ran. The sudden violence shattered the German rhythm before it could form. Each success reinforced the method. Speed denied the enemy time to aim. Motion confused range-finding optics. By the time German gunners adjusted, the Sherman was already past them, attacking flanks, tracks, and weak seams. Infantry followed, emboldened by the sight of steel refusing to stop. But victory carried a price. Every charge announced their presence. Smoke columns marked their path. German commanders began asking why their lines collapsed wherever one reckless American tank appeared. The tin can was no longer surviving. It was hunting, and the battlefield slowly learned to fear it. Winning did not feel triumphant. It felt exhausting. Days blurred into nights as engines overheated and crews ran on caffeine and adrenaline. Sleep came in minutes, not hours, broken by the sound of artillery or the fear of fire. Hands shook from fatigue, then steadied the moment battle returned. The machine was failing too. Tracks wore thin. Engines screamed in protest. Every charge pushed metal closer to collapse. Inside the tank, tempers flared and silences grew heavier. No one spoke about fear, but it lived in every breath. They understood the truth. The tactic worked, but it was burning them down from the inside. Victory was no longer about skill. It was about endurance. Time was the real enemy now. When it finally ended, it happened without warning. A hidden tiger waited at the corner of a narrow road, its gun already aligned. The Sherman charged, committed, blind. There was no time to maneuver, no space to escape. The shot came first, not theirs. Steel buckled, the world flipped. Smoke and dust filled the compartment. In seconds, the math returned. Speed and courage met physics, and physics won. The tin can stopped moving, and the war collected its price. Nothing heroic remained, only survival instincts and the sudden brutal silence. They beat tigers with speed and will, but victory did not mean escape. The battlefield fell silent, yet the damage remained. Machines could be replaced, bodies could not. The math never counted fear, exhaustion, or loss. This story endures because it proves wars are decided by people, not steel alone.